Yes, ma'am, we are live now.
Good afternoon. I, Diya Jain, on behalf of the BRICS Chamber of Commerce and Industry, welcome you to this webinar on the role of women in information and communication technology. The BRICS Chamber of Commerce and Industry is a parent organization which promotes commerce and industry in the BRICS nations. The Chamber, founded, is a not-for-profit, non-governmental organization. CCI is a registered body empaneled with NITI Aayog and recognized by the.
You're not audible.
You're not audible. Yeah.
Is to create an enable. Am I audible now?
Shamisha, maybe you can start.
Hello.
Hi.
Am I audible now?
Good afternoon. Am I audible loud and clear?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Dia was a little not audible. Shabana, we have you here.
Yes, I am here, Sharmishta. Hello, everybody.
You're audible, everyone. So good afternoon again, lovely ladies. It's always a pleasure to have a webinar with, in the women's vertical, because we not only get to meet very enterprising and bright and smart women. They are, every time I see the panel, I see such lovely faces. It kind of lights up the whole screen and makes you do more work together and connect and go ahead with full zest. So in India, Becky, as you must be aware, we are people who take our festivals very, very seriously. And today, the 11th of May, although it's not called as a festival, but I think as times are changing and modern times are coming, science and technology is a matter of celebration. So a day dedicated to celebrating the spirit of science and technology has to have all the importance, all the attention that it needs to have. So today, as we are celebrating a National Technology Day in India, we have been here together so that we can not only discuss how technology has gone from strength to strength, how it helps to have a great sustainable future, but majorly we also want to discuss how participation of women has been instrumental in reaching there, and what more can be done, and how all of you, a bunch of very successful, experienced women entrepreneurs there, what messages you have for youngsters, how can we better use what all you have gone through, the experiences that you have had, and how we can inculcate it all to a better future for everyone. I'll give a very small history to this.
Am I audible now?
Yeah, you are audible now, Dia. Yeah.
I can start. Good afternoon. I, Diya Jain, on behalf of the BRICS Chamber of Commerce and Industry, welcome you to this webinar on the role of women in information communication and technology. The BRICS Chamber of Commerce and Industry is a parent organization which promotes commerce and industry in the BRICS nations. The Chamber, founded in 2012 with the efforts of eminent professionals and entrepreneurs, is a not-for-profit, non-governmental organization. BRICS CCI is a registered body empaneled with NITI Aayog and recognized by the United Nations. The objective of BRICS CCI is to create an enabling support system, especially for the MSME segment of businesses, young entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, and startups from across all geographies. While the BRICS nations will remain at the center of all activities, the Chamber has taken it in its credo to reach out to and enable young entrepreneurs from other friendly nations too. It proposes to be the voice of entrepreneurs and helps them cultivate their business with due regard to social, cultural, and security issues. The job of the future will be driven by technology and innovation. 65% of children entering primary school today will have jobs that yet do not exist. With technology playing a role in all kinds of careers, from art and history to law, primary teaching, and graphic design, learning tech skills at a young age will set girls up for economic independence. There is a need for a global movement to increase the representation of girls and women in technology. The United Nations International Telecommunication Union has highlighted the need to promote technology career opportunities for girls and women in the world's fastest growing sector. Girls and young women who learn coding, apps development, and computer science will not only be well placed for a successful career in the ICT, but ICT skills are rapidly becoming a strong advantage for students in just about any other field they might choose to pursue. While girls across the world tend to outperform boys in reading and writing skills, they continue to be underrepresented amongst top performers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. With more support towards education and skills training, let us encourage more girls and women and young women to actively pursue careers in STEM to bridge the gender digital divide. The BRICS Chamber of Commerce and Industry today presents a webinar on role of women in information and communication technology on National Technology Day. Tech companies and schools with technology programs disseminate information to girls on why they should consider this career path. Through this webinar, we want to encourage girls to think about pursuing a technology career and encourage them to do things like start a technology, computer programming, or robotics club in their school. Our panel consists of eminent personalities from the industry. Today we have with us Ms. Shivani Kapoor. Shivani is the co-founder of Think Startup, an entrepreneurship education platform. An IIT Delhi and IIM Calcutta alumni, she is a serial entrepreneur. Her previous startup, Intelliates Learning, acquired by Clay. Dr. Shweta Singh, leading India's first all-women networking platform, She Real. Dr. Shweta Singh, backed by a strong academic background, has been extending educational and corporate expertise since the time she was an IP attorney herself. With a master's degree in technology, business administration and law, and a doctoral degree in business management, combined with years of experience in the field of business, she has over 13 years of hands-on experience in the field of intellectual property rights and startup ecosystem. Her love for IP goes beyond her experience as a consultant. She's also authored 3 books based on IPR and women empowerment. Her NPO, Women Entrepreneurship and Innovation Foundation, has also been dedicated to extending support to innovative women-led startups and small businesses. She has also established a research firm, Council of Industrial Innovation and Research. She has also been blessed by the Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi for her relentless efforts towards the upliftment and empowerment of women across the globe. Ms. Becky Lodge. Becky Lodge is a degree and CIM qualified founder and director with a 30-year career history in STEM-based markets as an international sales and marketing director. Becky has spent her entire life building businesses and revenue from startups to SMEs and large multinationals. In 2015, she founded Little Kanga Limited, a management consulting practice specializing in digital innovation, startup incubation, and entrepreneurship for universities and governments worldwide. Becky then founded the online and digital business support brand Startup Disruptors, a subscription community that helps early-age startups and aspiring business owners to fund and scale their businesses. One of the Sky News' 100 Women in Business and contributing author to BBC News Online for Technology, Becky was the first tech mentor in the UK to be approached by Faster Capital in Dubai to aid their tech startups for mentoring. A lecturer in operational sales management at the University of Portsmouth Business School, Becky has an agenda around enabling social mobility and gender parity through making entrepreneurship accessible and affordable for all, and advocate for women and inclusion in business and diversity. A super connector with high EQ and open mindset, Becky is driven to help change the entrepreneurship education space for future generations and to help women create a more sustainable business. Ms. Shauramishta Ghosh, MBA from IMT Ghaziabad, she is the Director of Business Advisory with BRICS CCI. Taking care of business expansion and extensive consulting, an economist, she is a World Bank certified fundraising expert, emerging economy specialist, 360 degrees business consultant, and World Bank's certified sustainability development consultant. She is a developmental economist from MIT and proud student of Nobel laureates Esther Duflo and Abhijit V. Banerjee. She is chapter chair for Delhi NCR, Power Aviation for All Women League, and the Women Economic Forum. She has a work experience of 15 years in various roles, both corporate and consulting across countries. Ms. Shabana Naseem. Ms. Shabana Naseem is a dynamic entrepreneur working in the business to government space who has created a niche for herself and her organization, NF Infratech. The firm today represents her vision, stands for her values, and is a realization of her efforts and hard work. Ms. Naseem is a pioneer in consolidating infrastructure consulting, regional planning, and EPC contracting under an umbrella organization, NFI SPL, specializing in quality research, precision reports, and scheduled commitments. Ms. Ruby Sinha, a well-versed communications professional and entrepreneur with over 20 years of experience in working closely with brands across different verticals and geographies. She started Commune Brand Communications, a 360-degree award-winning brand communications firm, in 2012 after holding senior positions in 2020 MSL, and GCI Grey Global Group. Commune is today ranked amongst top 50 PR firms in India and has been adjudged as a specialist agency in the APAC region for technology sector by the Holmes Report. Experiencing the challenges faced by women entrepreneurs, she founded sheatwork.com, a one-stop knowledge hub for women entrepreneurs globally. She's also the convener of the women's wing of BRICS CCI. Now I request Ms. Ghosh to take over.
Thank you so much. With the introductions there, it might seem that we are, with a very formidable group of women, and this is a panel to think twice about. But what I can assure you, that women, when they start conversing and they want to have a meaningful dialogue, the first thing that comes across, and I'm saying this out of experience, is the immense kindness and empathy that you have for the woman, the next woman. And I really believe that these are some of the founding principles of entrepreneurship, which are probably not taught in many books, management books. But when you have kindness and empathy, and you understand from where the other entrepreneur is coming from, and you understand their problems and pains a little bit more, we make an more inclusive environment, and then we all thrive. So with that thought, actually, we started this journey of BRICS CCIV, the women entrepreneurship vertical of our chamber, so that we can give a more inclusive, affectionate, caring environment for any woman entrepreneur who comes to us. And we are very happy. We are elated to have all of our dear guests with us here. So I was, before Dia start speaking, I was telling a bit why today is important, what is so great about 11th of May. So India traditionally, it's known as a traditional country which focuses too much on its culture, but we also are rapidly making progress in the space of technology, and probably this is a day which acknowledges this. So we had a president who was one of the leading scientists of the world. So there is a lot of impetus that is put on how to take it forward, how to be more technical and technologically savvy, what can be done in science and technology to create a more sustainable future. So today was the day, I think in the year 1998, Ruby can correct me if I'm getting the dates wrong. So I think in 1998, we had our first nuclear test. And that's the day when we kind of formalized 11th of May to be celebrated as Science and Technology Day. That was also the day when our first ingenious aircraft, Hansa 3, took to the skies. So I think those were small milestones in creating a very, very bright future to come. And this is the day that we remember all the achievements that we have had. And we have a long, long way to go from there on. And in the same spirit, we have already been introduced to everyone. So I'll open up the panel and I'll open up the discussion. Today, as it's already been mentioned, we are discussing the role of women in science and technology. How are they contributing? Because unfortunately, and Ruby again, she has done a beautiful report on the subject, which we'll talk about in a bit. So the participation percentage of women entrepreneurs or otherwise in science and technology is sadly not yet 50. And all we want is 50. We don't want 60, we don't want 80, All we want is equal seat at the table. We want 50. That's all that we want. But today we have with us few bright women who have proved their mettle in the world of technology. So I'll open up the panel, and I think Shivani has been very quiet there. After a hello, we haven't spoken at all. So Shivani, I'll take it to you first. Think Startup, what is it all about? What was your journey? How you came to be? Tell us something about yourself.
So, I have, grown up in the 80s and 90s. And, if you look at my school and college education, and that was a time when girls in STEM, it was even darker than it is right now, right? So, but I was fortunate enough to grow up in a house where my dad was an engineer. And at the time that I was 4 years old, I was playing with Lego and learning fractions, right? But that was the environment that I was fortunate enough to get. And what that did was really shaped the rest of my life. So what I'm trying to bring out is a lot of the problems that we are talking about, they have to be tackled very early on, right? Because that's the genesis, at least of my journey. And I'm sure everyone here has similar journeys, but I was fortunate enough to get that environment while I was in school, where I was encouraged to explore my interests and really figure out where my strengths lie. And I remember in 11th grade I switched school and was fortunate enough to get an option to take up computer science, and this was in the 1990s, so it was not really that common at that time. But I took on computer science, being a very nerdy, kind of teenager, but really just felt comfortable in the world of computers and logic, and where everything kind of made sense in black and white. So that was, the first starting point of really getting into tech and enjoying that side of, as a field. And then went on to do my engineering at IIT Delhi, but always stayed in a minority, right? So 3 girls in a batch of 40. And but
Give you a lot of power too, no?
Sorry?
Didn't that give you a lot of power also?
Absolutely. And the kind of confidence and the kind of growth you have through those experiences is immense, right? So so that's been the journey. That was my start in the tech field. From there, I graduated at a time when the Indian tech industry was booming, and there was a natural progression. My first job was with Infosys, and that's where 10 years in tech, really worked with the Fortune 500 companies, built the first Apple online store, was part of that team. So really kind of enjoyed that experience in tech. And 10 years back, branched out into entrepreneurship. And I'm now running Think Startup, which is an edtech company, and it is about entrepreneurship education for girls. And one of the things that we feel very strongly and passionate about is to make sure that our curriculum is gender neutral. It is encouraging. It is not encouraging any stereotypes, but is really enabling each child to pick and find their areas of passion.
So Becky, you might have been around a little longer. So I would want to know from you what sparked your interest too. Like we just heard that Shivani's interest was sparked because she had an engineer at home. Her father was an engineer, and she used to do fractions with Legos, right? So that sparked very early on in life. So Becky, tell us what made you catapult towards technology and taking it up as a career, and you have been doing so well, and you've been doing so many things for such a long time. So please, involve us in your journey as well.
I think I just never fit anywhere. I think as a girl, I didn't have girly interests or typically female dominated interests. It was very clear very early on when I was very small that my neighbour that lived next door but one had an Action Man doll character, which was like a G.I. Joe type of character who had access to tanks. And I enjoyed tree climbing much more than I did playing with dolls. And in the 1970s, that was considered to be quite unique. And also there wasn't the level of support in any way through the education system. At primary level, I was told I was useless at maths and streamed quite quickly. And then at A level, I was told that my best job prospects were to be a teacher or a nurse or a secretary. So I really didn't find my groove till a lot later. And I think that this is what happens with people who are typically neurodiverse or think differently. Both my parents were teachers, but again, I was born in inner city Leicester in 1971 in a working class area. So if it wasn't for the free education system in the UK, I probably couldn't afford to go to university now, with the debt in Britain of 60 to 80,000 pounds that students come out with. So for me, the only pathway I had was just, I liked talking to people, and I was very good at communicating and selling things. No matter seemingly how technical, it didn't matter, because there was always somebody there for backup if I could kick the door down to open the door to get in. And also what I learned very early on was I'm capable of processing ideas and assimilating information much faster than most people are capable of doing. So complicated concepts, I can just look at them and sort of on one piece of paper and say, yeah, this is simple, this is what this means. And that's extremely unusual. And I just thought that was normal. So at school, that was a struggle because they were desperately trying to stream me, or did, into the gifted category for English and creative arts and media, which was what my degree was in. But what they weren't doing then was making the connections between STEAM, as we call it in Britain now, which is STEM with arts involved in the middle. And they didn't realise that the level of the way that often women's brains or neurodiverse people's brains connect the dots is very different. I'm fascinated with Lego. My husband and I just bought the Friends coffee shop and spent 5 hours building it last weekend, and it's now sat on my living room table. So I think that there are commonalities, that as you speak to other women who have these experiences, and especially I loved Shivani's idea because it's very similar to what we're trying to do in the UK for neurodiverse entrepreneurs and minorities in the UK, and also in emerging markets eventually, is you've got to find who you are. And I think that for a really long time, up until I was 43, I felt trapped. I felt constrained because my ideas weren't heard. They weren't thought good. I worked for many men who were dismissive of everything that I did or said. Yet I was driving often millions of pounds worth of revenue for them. And to me, it was just clear. And I think that ability to see around corners for women, and especially girls, is very hard, because they might make up such a small percentage of a class, or and maybe actually not having a great experience at school. And I don't think that is down to geography. I think that's down to the way that the education system tries to fit square pegs in round holes, and sort of bash you into the nearest thing that looks as if it could be a career. And I just think, from my point of view, it's very, very, I'm totally honoured and humbled to be in this room today, because as women, you should be absolutely applauded and lauded for the academic and the business achievements that you have made. And why don't we know more about this? Why aren't we magnified more? Why aren't we amplified more? And I think for me, as a woman from a working class background who didn't go to Oxford or Cambridge, we really need to now start talking. And the great thing about technology is, look at what we're doing today. It's a massive leveler. So this is just a unique opportunity for us to really open a dialogue and say, let's share our experiences and see where it takes us. So thank you for having me.
So in the 3 minutes that Becky, you gave us, you have broken so many barriers down. I'll point them out to you. So you have taught us that your degree is not the definition of your intellects. You can do absolutely whatever you want to do. Age is never a barrier if you have that clarity in your mind. It's not cast in stone what career you have to pick up. You can change it midway. You can pick up something new and you can thrive. You always have to believe in yourself, and you have to not let anyone be reductive towards you. Whatever you're doing, it's important. It's equally important, and you have to try and be good at it. So I wanted to get Dr. Shweta in the conversation right now, but I'll make a little, change in the sequencing, because we have another woman on the panel whose story is very similar to all the points that I've made. So Shabana is here. She's a dear friend. She is also the president of this vertical. Now she runs a company which is one step ahead of tech, because she sells tech, which is, I'm telling you, is not an easy thing to do. Selling anything is difficult, but selling technology when you yourself are not somebody who has created it, not gone to an IIT, doesn't understand how it is created, but still convinces other people to pay their hard-earned money and buy it. I think it requires a lot of skill. So Shivana also landed on this after doing a few other things in life. I don't think what she studied initially is what she finally got her footing into. And I think this is a great experience. And when Becky was talking, Shabana, I was like, she's actually telling kind of your story of how you made NF, what the name signifies, you should tell, and how the journey has been. So Shabana, we have heard it, but I want everyone else to hear it also. Please tell us something about your journey, and then we'll go to Shweta just after that.
Thank you so much, Sharmishta. Thank you so much. You've been so kind. It's a lovely introduction that you've given. Yes, Becky's journey and mine is very similar. So in fact, when I was hearing your story, I was like, it's so much similar across the globe. People go through similar struggles and discover. I again would have said the similar thing about myself, that I would have discovered myself in my 40s, But my love for technology started my love for technology, I discovered when I was very young. I was always a maths friendly student. While I was in my school, I always liked physics and maths. I was very, very distant to biology. In biology, I found it very daunting, whereas maths and physics came naturally to me. So with all that, I would study, I was also enthralled by this innovation of computer science. I heard Shivani. Shivani, to me, you are a celebrity, a person who's cracked IIT, a girl in her 80s and in 80s and 90s, an Indian girl cracking IIT is a celebrity. I would have perhaps, I think you were a hero for all of us. Because to an IITian, we would always dream, competing the civil services, competing the IITs. This is a dream for a young Indian girl or a boy. It used to be. Now we have so many options. When we were in our 80s and 90s, the decades that you're talking about, it used to be. Now we have too many options. Talking about my journey, when I was young, I took to computer science. Because I would hear about it, internationally read about it. It was more of a hobby. My father was a civil servant, and I would see that all his dictations that he would give to his secretary was being typed on a typewriter. It was on a shorthand. And I learned typing, I said, well, this is how a computer keypad would work eventually. So let me learn typing. So this would help me if I do my computer science engineering. But life had different plans for me. Somewhere on the way, I got married, changed my stream. I took arts, learned literature. I found literature also very nice, but my love for science and love for technology was always there. And India, now you've seen, is changed. When you used to talk about India earlier, we would...
I have a question here. Like you said, you studied literature, although your heart was in computers. So
Right.
Do you think that was because of how the society conditioned it, or do you think that was more secure, or was there an external, stimulus towards it, or or were you happy with that?
So that was because, I was, as I said, the plans changed because I was very ambitious. I wanted to do computer science engineering, but I got married. So my social surroundings were such that, you should become a lecturer or a teacher. You should take up to English literature and become a professor, as Becky was mentioning.
Exactly what Becky was saying, that,
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So that also I pursued with passion. And I continued, because English literature, again, is a very lovely subject. But India was changing. India had shifted its impetus from literature and language towards technology. You said, our President APJ Abdul Kalam, in 1998, Pokhran happened. And India was earlier looked at as a country of snake charmers. And, when people would talk about India, it was a very different, a very different image you would draw. But in the 90s and late 80s and 90s and 2000, India became a country of software engineers. There was a huge population of our country that was taking to software engineering. Then you had the entire Silicon Valley. People would come back from America and give us stories that, listen, there is a world which is very different, which India has made. In fact, the entire, the SF, the Bay Area has been built by Indians. That's what.
Yes, that's true.
Correct. So India has shifted. And so we said, why should we not also be in the same, why should we not ride on the wave? Yeah. So when I started my organization, we started as NF Infratech. So NF is the initial of my parents, Sharmishta was asking. Naseem and Farhat are my parents.
So that is the Indianness. That is the part that India gives you. That you always carry your family with you. You always carry a little of our family with ourselves in our hearts. You always want to include our parents, our siblings with us in the journey till the end. So that's why I made this point.
And my mother always told me, "Tum mere beta, like, you're my son, So I would always try to bring, name and fame to my parents like a son would. That was my endeavor. So I'm thinking NF Infratech. So tech was always a part of our company when we started as a technology, as a GIS mapping urban planning company. That's how we initiated. Then came the Digital India Initiative by our Honorable Prime Minister. So since then, we have never looked back. And technology, Sharmishta says it's a big thing to sell, but I feel people who innovate, people who are actually developing technology, they are our heroes, They have changed the world that we live in.
So Shweta, I'll come back to you. So Dr. Shweta Singh is somebody who is wearing so many hats at this, together. So you are an IP lawyer. Then from there, you gravitated towards more tech. You created a networking platform for women. And you have some very interesting names here. You have an organization called The Wife, right, Shweta?
Yes.
Yeah. So everything sounds very interesting. Tell us more. She Real is your platform. I did have a chance to look at it. And I think we have some great people right there, and I think as a chamber we would also like to work more with you on that initiative. But tell us a bit more about your research firm, because I was just wondering how many different hats you are wearing, and there are so many different things that you are doing together. But Wife really caught my fancy, and I was like, I'll let her speak about it a bit. What is Wife all about, and what are the rest of the initiatives that you're doing all about?
So why so many hats? Because since childhood, it was always, I was very curious. Every child is curious. So I was like, if I'm adopted for something, I was stopped for something. Do not touch this. While you are mensurating, do not touch this. So I go touch that and feel that what is going to change after I am touching it. So
you must have had a lot of electrical shocks growing up.
Yes. So it's in India. It's a myth. It was a myth that if you touch the pickle during your when you are mensurating, it will get old.
Yeah.
So, and when my mom said that don't touch, don't go and just pray while doing this. So I was praying. I was just seeing what God is going to give me, or why this pickle is not going to be rotten. So that was curiosity. I always wanted not to be doctor or engineer, but I loved to be related to technology everywhere. My father wanted me to be doctor, and then further, when I didn't qualify, my mom wanted me to be a civil engineer, as Indian mentalities goes in 80s, that either you become a doctor, engineer. If you are not doctor, engineer, go for civil services. But I always wanted to come up with my own brand, because that was very fascinating. I was always like, I'll give a job, because the kind of family I come from, the girls are not respected. The community I come from, the girls are not respected. So we are felt like a burden. So when we are three sisters, and my everyone suggested, my family, my parents, that do not spend on their education, because you have to save for dowry, you have to save for marriage.
There's no return on that education, because she'll ultimately go away.
Yes,
So,
yes.
yeah.
But we were very blessed. All three of us very blessed that our parents didn't think about in that sense that they are going to just spend which is not going to give any ROI, because they didn't thought about ROI. They just thought about the creating the identity. And my mother was like, I'm not saying you're my boy or girl. You are a human being and
Right.
you have to create your own identity. And that thought process came from there only, from my mother, that you have to create your own identity. And one thing which is very important was financial freedom. This what took me, that I want to build my own, something of my own, big or small. That time I didn't know. Then while doing my graduation, I was like I was doing my graduation in science. It was chemistry and botany, and but it was not very fascinating because I didn't love the lab work, but I didn't want to go away with the technology. So I wanted everything to. I should know everything, how this computer is working, how this anything, how this cloth has been made. So it was very curious every time the questions was going on. So what I found in one of the book of BD Singh, one word that was patent during my graduation. And when I studied about patent, it was like, oh, if I go into this field, I'm always related to technology. I'll get to know new projects, new technologies, and future technologies. So there I decided that I'll become a patent attorney, and then obviously I'll open my own patent firm. So I entered into the patent world. I did my masters. Yes, education was very important, because that one thing my dad always wanted, that study a lot, because knowledge gives you power to stand on your own confidence. So from there my journey started. I did my post graduation, and then MBA also I did. And then obviously I have to be into IP field. I went to WIPO Geneva. I studied my patent law there, came back, studied Indian law, and then worked with few industries and started this firm. Now why so many hats? Because one thing bores me. If I am into one thing, it always bore me. So I want to do something new, something new, something new. And that's why after I established a Noble IP, I started with Women Innovation Entrepreneurship Foundation, WIEF. We call it WIFE. So here I wanted every woman supported in their skill development, and we started this mission, women empowerment mission, supported rural women, because in metro and good cities, if you see, always there is so many things. The woman who like us, who comes from 80s or 90s, that time the opportunities and exploration, how to explore things, were very not was not there. But now the opportunities are there. Things you can Google everything now, right? So every opportunities are there and every knowledge is there on the internet. But going to a rural area, going to a tier 3 tier 4 cities, and talking to those female, that what you want to be, you have to decide on your own. And then government is there, companies are there, and people like us are there to support you, to give you those skills, to handhold you. So that's why WIEF started, and we started doing this. And there is only one vision of WIEF, that whom we approach, that women in future should be financial independent on her own.
In my own experience, a little help given to a rural based woman, or a woman from a tier 3 city where she otherwise does not have too much of support, it really takes them a long way.
Yes,
It's the return on investment is much higher. It really
yes,
helps them much more, because they are often struggling in through not many places. They're struggling. It's not just one struggle. They have multiple struggle together. So this is, you already told about the bias, and you also said that you had a, like, in your family, but you had a very supportive family structure. Your parents supported you and you could break the bias. I like to take the same question to Becky. Becky, when you were as looking back at your career, can you tell me one positive experience that you had, that you think that there was a bias and you were like fighting and then you got help or whatever? So we also need positive stories. We all need know the struggles. So maybe one thing or one incident that you can share with us, which you really yeah.
Yeah, I think it's difficult because you only hear the bad stuff. But what I would say is that I've been extremely lucky working in male-dominated environments my whole life, both in radio broadcast software technology and also in the latter part of my career before starting up engineering infrastructure in power generation. And I've had some phenomenal male advocates. during this time. And in fact, most of my mentors have been men.
Or maybe they already knew that you could not be reduced and you would not listen. So maybe they just thought that it's better to, join the chorus and, just support her. Because, when you are unstoppable.
I think I was very lucky because the fact, and again, it comes into these ideas about gender, which I'm very, very vocal about, which is I've had people in teams that I've worked with that don't really see you as being a woman or a man or non-binary or transgender or whatever. They just see you as being you.
I'm loving
they
this
see you as being
change.
you.
In the world, I'm really loving this particular change, that it's becoming more and more gender neutral, even in personal spaces, in friendships, in collaborations, you just don't look at the gender anymore. You don't get even, Shabana will relate to this, Shabana, you don't even get considerations because you're a woman anymore, do we?
So, not at all.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, Sharmishta, a long time back, if I was told that, if you are somebody who delivers, someone who restricts to your commitment, people do not care. Yeah. It could be a boy, it could be a girl, it could be a dog. As long as you're sticking to your commitment, honoring your commitment and delivering what you promised. But whether it's a man or a woman, if you're not honoring, if you're not fulfilling your commitments, if you're not able to, perform, so these, you are going to be, taken to task. No considerations. Maybe earlier the level of consideration would have been, there could have been some consideration for women, I don't know, but we never got that special treatment as such, and we never wanted that treatment either.
It's interesting actually, because they've just in 2019 there was a report done about female entrepreneurship in the UK by a lady called Alison Rose of NatWest Bank, and they've just announced today that they're going to actually have a task force for female entrepreneurship to specifically look at how we can engender more parity, because if we do that in the UK alone, it will put 250 billion into the UK economy, and that's a huge figure. So we need to see that. Yeah, and we need message. Yeah, and we need to see that shift, because there still are barriers. I mean, outside London especially, and I started in Portsmouth, which is on the south coast of the UK, it's still a very naval centric, forces, male dominated, male centric city. And some of the concepts that I was talking about, 5-6 years ago, people were horrified by. And I was literally invited along as entertainment almost to panels, because they say, well, Becky will make everybody giggle a bit with some of this future thinking stuff that she's talking about. We'll invite her along. And also because that 50-50 thing, people are like, oh, we haven't got a woman, so we'll invite Becky because she's the only one that we can see.
I get that.
So that happens a lot, and it probably happens to everybody here. So what I want, and I think what we all want, is for that to stop. And actually say, it would be nice for us to be 80% female and inviting the boys along to make up the numbers. And I think in the next 50 years, when we finally get gender parity in the UK, which is a long time, and I will either be in the retirement home by then or gone somewhere else onwards, that we just need to create that pathway for young girls and women not to have to face a lot of the challenges that perhaps we faced when we were younger. But we had a brilliant time, and I loved Shivani's story about, that explosion of tech. And also, I think my grandmother was a future thinker, and I think Shweta was saying about learning to type. My grandmother said to me at school, learn to type, do a typing certificate, because you'll always have a job if you can type. Okay, now, it's almost like she had, a view into the future, that she could see what the future held.
Tell us something, one great experience that you had, and looking back at your career, and you think that this great story helped me breaking the bias, or this thing, or I was facing this but it didn't happen to me, or this was happening to me but I overcame it in this fashion, or whatever. Take us to that part of your journey.
Many, I think as a woman, you go through so much at different stages, and my stint in tech was largely very positive, right? So I was fortunate enough to join an organization that had a really good culture, and there was there's very little room for anything to kind of trigger, because there are very small things in the workplace that essentially create this kind of negativity for a woman in the workplace, right? So I think the workplace inherently is, the way it's structured is really geared towards men, right? So in the way that
then I'll ask you a slightly different question.
Yeah.
Do you think that when you're working for deep tech, or you're working very on intense projects and everything, do you think that it takes a toll on a woman's mind a little more than a man's? Do you think that there is something that you feel like,
so I was just getting to that, and I think I also want to talk about some of the good things that have happened in the recent years, right? So what used to happen was there was this kind of inherent thinking that if someone's staying back late, they are a harder worker, right? And as a woman, what ends up happening is you get into work, you do your work, you want to go back to your kids and stuff. So I think that's been the culture in corporate tech, that, you know, and even though the men may be going down to, you know, have their evening snack and then chit chat and then come up and work, but the expectation that they will be putting in long hours, and as women we want to go and get it. I think what has happened with COVID now is that some of that work environment has changed and has become really much more.
So we have an interjection coming from Ruby. So Ruby, you know, we take you for granted. We're so sorry. You know, Ruby is a fantastic entrepreneur, and she has been helping tech companies, helping telecom companies across the board being heard. That's what effective communication is all about. So Ruby wants to interject. Ruby, I think, wants to make a point. Ruby, go ahead.
Yeah, you know, my question was to Shivani actually, because I know she works with students, and we at Shared Work and with TechUp, we did a report recently which highlighted that, you know, though the number of students women going into STEM sciences has grown from 5% to 16% over the last 4 years, but that's actually not translating into startups. So if you look at, you know, you're looking at 200 unicorns by 2025, but how many of them are led by women? And there were a lot of challenges that we saw that came forward in terms of infrastructure, mentorship, lack of technology talent for women, and lack of capital, because, you know, most of the funding rounds are led by men. So Shivani, when you are working with students, and this is a question that I can ask, you know, Shweta also, you know, if you're working with the new education policy is promoting experiential learning, but how do you feel this learning is going to translate into more women entrepreneurs? More women entrepreneurs in the technology space, you know, so women become tech creators and not just tech experiential, you know, not just experiencing tech, but they're more like tech creators.
So there are two factors, Ruby, I think, broadly, if we are to look at it. One is, of course, society and conditioning, and allowing for that freedom for girls to choose, right? And I think we are still doing a bad job, and because it needs so many stakeholders to come together. It needs educators, it needs the families, it needs, you know, the girl to be able to be allowed to dream. So there's so many factors that come together in terms of saying, how do we allow girls to explore that, you know, even visualize themselves as future entrepreneurs, because that's where an entrepreneurship journey starts, right? You really have to say, you have to be self-aware to say, I am capable of this, this, and this, and hence I can see myself 10 years in the future building this. I think we're not allowing for that to happen in our current system. And the second is having more role models. And I think this issue goes away when we get more and more women who are in leadership positions, who are breaking stereotypes, who are very visible to the world and to the community. And that then helps, sort through some of these conditioning issues that we have.
I think in every discussion of ours, I always make this point, and so I'm going to make this here as well. You want more policy favoring women, have more women policymakers. It's as simple as that. Elect more of them, send them more to the parliament. You want more women-centering policies, the policymakers have to be women. It's as simple as that. You know, everything else is a bias. When you say that this will promote this, that, and it's all, they're like, really, people are really scared of that situation. But you really want to have women-centric policy, you want to have, in whichever field you're talking about, have more women policymakers. You know, even
more than that, you know, Sharmisha, it's been my experience, you make the policies, but women are not even aware in India.
Yes, they're
not. Women can avail
the like that.
So, you know, that's also a point. You know, how do you build the awareness? I mean,
it's intentionally kept like that. putting something in a policy paper is one thing, but getting it implemented means money, means a lot of effort and everything. So it's intentionally kept like that also. If there's a policy that the government really wants to be inculcated, it will get inculcated. They'll do 1,000 and 1,000,000 ad campaigns, and it'll go to everyone, nook and corner. We all got our Aadhaar cards made. We've all linked it to every, sleeping cycles of ours. We've done that all. So I really think that some more serious thought has to be given on how women's policies are to be made and then propagated. Both the things need a lot of sustained efforts. So
I think I think you're right, but one of the things that we risk if it does go to become government policy is change of power.
Yes.
And one of the things that we looked at when we started Startup Disruptors was, could we create a private sector initiative backed by tech companies, UK universities and international giants to actually stop the reliance on government funding. So if we can raise that and go to B Corp status, then we can actually dictate the terms and give all the money that we want to women. So actually,
then it boils back to
massive. That's seismic.
It also then again boils back to having more women on top. Either ways, be it in the private sector or in the government sector. So all of you, I have a common question. Anyone can answer this. In front of your own eyes, from the time that you have been experiencing this, what changes do you see? Is it easier for women now a bit? Do you see more inclusion? Do you see more participation? What do you observe? Anyone can answer this for me. Shweta, maybe you want to take this, because you meet a lot of people, a lot of young entrepreneurs you meet.
Yes, so the time has changed. I would say the time I started there, as I told, a lot of lack of opportunities and lack of exploration was there, but the time has changed, and I see not as a policy or not being more supportive, but the mentality of a woman is changing. So she is coming forward by herself. Now only one thing which is required is trust. We don't need financial support. We don't need anything from anyone. We just need one thing: to trust her, because that trust can build her. I have live example where people said me that I'm telling them that Sherial is this, and then I got an answer: why don't you hire a tech guy? He will explain the technology better than you. And I said, what? This is my platform. Okay, who will explain better than what? How can I take care of my baby? No one can take care of it. So that is the reason that people have to start trusting a woman, especially in tech area, because what we are meant for, what society has conditioned, that either she will go in fashion. So if you're a woman, you have to start your startup in fashion industry, you have to start a food industry, or you have to start. They have already decided it for us. But the change which I have seen is more that now we are coming forward ourselves. So only one thing is
required. Call the shot. You're saying that women are more and more, they're trying to call the shot. That no,
yes, they themselves are. They themselves are. And that's because what Shivani said, that more of role model, more of examples for them, more of stories for them. So you see every woman led NGO or every woman led awareness program are focusing on more of stories, because my experience can contribute in someone's other experience, right? So that is something I have realized, that change has happened and change will happen. But if society, means if both the genders come together and build that trust, it will happen more fast.
So I'll have a couple of questions, taking the point that you have said, that society coming together. So what do you think, what kind of role can the male members of your team, because what I've generally seen is a male mentality is necessarily not the men in your life. We all have people around us who are extremely helpful and supportive and everything. So, what role can a male members of your team play in providing the women team members a more inclusive, more empowering role, so that they can also reach their full potential? That is one thing I would like to discuss. And second thing, which is at least very common in India, if you don't have a lot of support in terms of tech, if the support system is not that tech savvy, let's say like you work with rural entrepreneurs, for an example, right? So if that is not very tech savvy, how do you address that? Because these are very practical issues that we face, and women in technology and everything. So, but maybe your support system is not that savvy, or you still have a lot of male, team members. So both the things. And I would like to have Shivani also taking, and Becky can also, tell her experience to it. You can start, Shweta.
So first question I'll answer, and it's a very funny thing which I do in my organization. See, as we talked about conditioning of the society, so there is a term which I always talk to my boys, male in my team members. This is called unconsciousness biasness, right? Unconscious, we are not conscious, and it's a, you are a girl, you will not do this. You cannot do this, you're a woman. You cannot go to that place, you are a woman. So that is unconscious. We don't want, we know that she is already doing, sitting on her seat, she is doing her job fantastically. But then again, it comes unconsciously that, hey, you are a girl, you cannot do this, you're a woman. So I take training every 3 months. I take training of my male members that break this unconsciousness biasness, because this is something you are going to actually handhold your female colleague. Just trust her. So I try to build that trust, because I know that is conditioned by family, that by society.
It's not even done in a negative spirit. It's just done as a matter of nature, a matter of habit.
Yes, and that's why I say it's unconscious.
Yes.
It's not consciously.
It's subtle manner, but it's derogatory. The subtle manner, they do not.
It's very reductive. It's very reductive that,
Yes. So that way we do a lot of trainings for our male colleagues that, see, you unconsciously also, you don't have to say this because she is already there. So that you as a colleagues, you have to build the trust factor. And I'm very proud, I can very proudly say within my team, there is no gender biasness within, unconsciously also, for the people who are actually working us for last 2 years now, 3 years now, and they support each other, and that trust is there. So that way every male is empowered. So we don't need to empower women right now. We need to empower male of our society, because we need the trust factor into the trusting the female that she is doing it and she can do it. Rest. Second point is rural. So it will surprise you, because when I visit rural India, I found more tech savvy girls there.
Okay.
Yes, and they know better how to operate a mobile, and this happened during COVID time, right? How to operate mobile and how to do this. They just, what they want, just simple hand holding and taking them from there and uplifting them to do something good. So I seriously was surprised, this small girls of age of 12, 13, 14, they are more tech savvy and they actually want to learn. So if we say that rural India is not that tech savvy, this is wrong. It's not only about girls.
You're saying the future looks brighter.
Yes, it is brighter, and we actually need good policies, good schemes, which should actually go to those places, and they should get benefit. It should not be only papers, or in papers, and then and in the advertisements.
Yeah. So Becky, you already spoke about parity. You already spoke about investments. You already spoke about putting women and men together, and how that will create a more, not only inclusive society, it will be a great economic boost as well. So in your own experience, how do you think men are still reacting to it? Are there still bias, as she was mentioning? Is there some unconscious bias?
I'm very conscious that it depends on their age. I think, I think in England, in Britain especially, it's, if you look at, you break people down into baby boomers, so typically 55 plus, there's still that very archaic way of viewing women. They should be having children, they should be at the kitchen sink. In work, you should be washing up and doing all of these other housework style tasks. And again, the Guardian newspaper this week was saying that women are doing 1 month's worth of household work at work as well as their jobs, which is why they're not promoted. So this is something that's got to change. I think Gen X, which is our generation, the rise of technology is the cusp of the actual change, which is really good, which is what we're experiencing here. I think as you get into millennials and into Gen Z, we're seeing, especially in Gen Z, much more horror at seeing the kind of bias. I mean, I've got a student in my team at the moment on his work placement who is horrified by the fact that I will send an email and not get a response. He sends the same email and gets responded to in 20 minutes, half an hour, because of gender. We've seen this in Silicon Valley. There was
this is
again, it's unconscious bias.
Yeah, but do you think it's only age or no? What I want to ask is, the people in their 50s are acting in a certain way. The people in their 20s are acting, dynamically opposite. So what do you think that this generation, when they'll grow up and become in the, do you think they'll be able to retain this neutrality, this unbiasedness, or do you think that by the time they grow old, they'll also fall in the same pattern? Do you think
you tend to see that it's also linked to levels of educational attainment? So you tend to find that inclusivity and diversity increases dependent on the level of education that anybody has had.
So I think you're also saying that the future looks a little better than
but I think that generally the shift that I've seen of people between the ages of 16 and 24, because of their love of the environment, the planet, they understand that the planet's burning, they want to do things. We're almost going back to the hippie movement of the 1960s, where people are really concerned about creating experiences and memories rather than consumerism, of the 1980s. So I think we're seeing a very positive shift in younger generations, and also digital natives, tech adoption. The kids generally have so much more choice. Our careers were secretary, nurse, doctor, engineer. The kids are, I can start a business on my phone in rural India or rural England or rural Wales or rural France. And that choice is pivotal, and that's why I love technology.
All the investment in the world is completely pivoted towards technology. So I had a meeting with an investor just yesterday, and I was discussing a few ideas with him, and I was telling him about something that is giving a steady 20% IRR, and he said, no, get me tech. That's the only thing I'm interested in. So because that has also led to this entire revolution of people getting more liberal with their ideas, because at least on the mental level of it, there are people who are willing to support it. If there is no governmental support, there's no family support, still there'll be a stranger out there who will probably relate to what you're thinking and will probably support you. So there is some hope, which has I think last 1 decade, it has been a hopeful decade in so many ways. But coming back to the main the DNA of this entire discussion, women in technology and STEM. Do you really think enough is done for women in this field? And if not, what would be one thing that you would say, either to governments or to policymakers or whoever, one thing that you think that if that can be included, that'll really give it a boost, and we can have many more women in the technology sector, and we'll have a bigger boost. Now, Shivani, let's start with you. What will be that one dream suggestion that you would want to make? And if you think enough is getting done already?
A lot is getting done. I think possibly in corporate, places, having representation at senior levels, I think is one of the biggest things I would say would drive change across the board. Because what we heard from Shweta, Dr. Shweta, is that she has been driving that change in her organization, right? But a lot of the organizations are very predominantly male at the top, and that really drives a lot of this inclusivity, the kind of policies that get put in place, the kind of support women have, because it's not just getting women in tech, right? I mean, it's also retaining them in tech. What ends up happening is they end up taking career breaks, and then how do we get them back into the workforce? So all of those are sensitive areas that need to be tackled, and only then will we get to that 50-50 place that we are all trying to be proponents of. So where there are women already at senior levels, I think the problem is already being solved for. The big change I feel that could drive much larger, wider, faster change would be having enough representation at senior levels across the board.
Bana, what are your thoughts about this?
So yeah, Sharmish, I heard everybody, and technology to me is a tool, so even if women are not in technology, they may not be into development, may not be into software development, coding, etc. But everybody is using technology as a tool today. in whichever field they may be, maybe medical science, I mean, we are people who from say 80s and 90s, ours was a more society which was more closed and things like that. We had to struggle. Today, women can make choices. They are choosing not to work. Now, that is something that actually, it disappoints me. It actually breaks my heart. A lot of women choose not to work because they want the easy way out. To me, the message from my side is do not
And a
choose
lot
the
of men also don't want to work. They have to work because they have no other choice.
but since we want this transition, since we want to
Yeah.
bring a change, since there is an evolution which has to happen,
Since
women
we're
have
bringing
to
this
keep
up,
pursuing this.
since we are bringing this up, I'd like to add one thing. We should also normalize stay-at-home dads and stay-at-home, men.
Stay-at-home dads is very normal. I mean,
Yeah,
exactly.
let's
Now,
normalize this. Let's not make that a taboo. Whoever is better at doing whatever should do.
absolutely.
Work should not be gender specific and gender biased. Whoever can do whatever
And a
better.
small
should be the
accolade to
person doing
myself,
it.
we got this award recently. We've been given the #1 Women
Oh my
Entrepreneurship
God!
Award by
Congratulations!
Thank you so much. I heard the panelists, I heard Shivani, Shweta, and Becky, they said you should have more people, more women visible. And so you should
Yes,
talk
yes.
about your,
That's
achievements.
absolutely correct. Because in a group of women, when one woman achieves something, we all have achieved something. We all have taken that step. Like when Neil Armstrong put a foot on the moon. That's what is said, that one small step for a man and a giant for mankind. So I think when one woman gets empowered, she's somehow empowering everyone around. She's breaking a bias. Small steps matter. I always believe that small steps matter a lot. Ruby, you have something to add to this this part of the discussion.
Raise my hand or what? No, I didn't notice
The
that.
hand is raised, but even if
Yes,
otherwise not.
Yeah, but you know what Shivani said and what Shabana ji said was right. Because one thing more we saw in our survey that 48% of women in the non-metros wanted to be entrepreneurs compared to 24% or something in the metros. So metros, women are looking more at careers and jobs, and women in the smaller cities are looking at entrepreneurship. But what they are lacking is role models, and role models are lacking because even in the IT sector, if you look currently, there's not a clear career progression for women. A techie. So where from coding, where does she move to, and what is the leadership role that she's looking to? We have very few role models like a Nivriti Rai and all. So that women and leadership is very important. Otherwise, marketing and HR functions, you find a lot of women. But where are the women?
I want to add a very interesting point here. That we're losing you. Hello, Ruby, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Yeah. I want to add a very interesting observation here. If you see a lot of movies made in the West, or you see a lot of TV shows or whatever, you'll always find the nerdy one sitting on a couch on a computer and doing something to be a woman. It's always a girl who is the nerd and doing everything. In Indian, television. So what I'm trying to say that popular culture does have a huge impact. So you have, when you talk about role model, so role models necessarily are not people who are how they are depicted in the popular media, popular culture does affect young minds a lot. So if you can relate to, if you remember Ruby, when we were very young, there was this TV serial called, I forgot the name. Shabana, you remember? About an IPS officer, a woman IPS officer.
Uran.
Yeah. And it inspired a generation of women to join the police force. So even popular media makes a huge impact, and somehow that's technology. Now popular media is now Netflix, so it's in our hands, in our own mobile phone. You're not, earlier we had one television, so we were dictated to watch whatever maybe the male members of the family want to watch. They want to watch sport or news. The females were watching the same, but now we have tech right in our hands, so we have that freedom. So I think role models come from popular media as well. So they watch that, young girls especially, they get inspired, they want to do similar things. Shivani, I have a little different question for you. You have been raising funds, is that correct? For your different ventures?
Currently
doing.
Yeah.
So do you think that there is a difference vis-a-vis a woman founder and a probably a male founder, or how do you?
Yeah, so I'll talk about general, not my experiences, because I've had many, but I'm connected to a lot of women founders, right? And we do.
Sure.
brainstorm. There is an absolute bias. I mean, if you just go by numbers, if you look at the number of women-led ventures that are getting funded, it's laughable, right? It's not even there. If if I have heard enough stories of women who have gone in as co-founders, and there is one man and one woman who are pitching as a startup, the woman does the entire pitch, right? And when the questioning happens, the VCs turn to the man and start to ask questions, right? So there is a really strong, deep old boys club going on over there, which really
boys club are still, Indian men are still nervous around women. They just can't talk to women,
right? It's possible. And also just having more women in the VC space, in the angel investing space, will fix that. But we are so far away from that utopia that it's
just
really
a small input there. We women, we work a lot. Like, I've seen women, they're a little shy talking about finances. They're a little shy dealing with finances. They feel, that money making is something, which doesn't go very well with their demeanor, or I don't know. I found a certain conditioning that men have perhaps engineered. I don't know, or the society is engineered, but women find talking about money, discussing finances, handling money to their advantage a little, a little
maybe they're a little scared. Maybe you make a mistake or whatever, so they've always taken a little back step.
Maybe, or they also find it a little, a little derogatory. I think they're a little embarrassed doing that. Whereas they should be, I have no idea. I found that. So therefore, interest in finance.
Do you agree to her observation? Because Becky, you have been a mentor to a big fund in the Middle East, and you have heard them. So you are probably someone that Shivani, Becky is probably somebody we really want on our side, on our team, because she mentors a huge fund in the Middle East, and I don't know what they think about women, and are they looking at women-centric ventures?
I think they're very good, because for them, they've got an investor network of around 1,000 plus now, and it's very much on the idea of merit. And also they look at people's pitch decks for a couple of $1,000, and if they can't fund you, then you get your money back. So really, they're disrupting the whole venture capital system. But this goes back to the key point I was making earlier about what we're trying to do at Startup Disruptors, is if women create a private sector initiative, we gain control of the finances and the money. We can then give it to whoever we want. And actually setting up a female orientated venture capital fund is critical. There are people in this space. So there's Playfair Capital, who are in Europe, who are doing a very good job around this. There are now more Silicon Valley venture capital funds started by women. So we will start to see a shift. But you're right, less than 1% of venture capital funding globally goes to women, which is just woefully terrible. I don't even know how to phrase that in a very British way of saying it needs to improve.
What do you think? Men assume that women are not good enough, or they think that they're really much better than them, and they're scared?
There's a few interesting assumptions. So the first one is that they assume that women are more risk averse than men. There's proof from hence more profitable. If you have a woman on your board, then your company is on average 67% more profitable than if there isn't one. So again, it's linking back to all of this data that is screaming at the moment, again, alluding to the 250 billion if we support female entrepreneurship in Britain. This just makes sound financial sense. But what you have is very much that old boys club of we keep the money, we go to the people that we know, they come out of the Oxbridge system, it's fairly safe, it's very, if he knows his dad and they play golf together, you've still got that. And that kind of gatekeeping is really what you're never going to change that. So you almost have to create an alternative system that is funded by people like us, that is advocated by people like us to actually give people the money.
Let's create that.
In India also we have quite a few like She Capital and all have come up. In India you have these VCs which are coming up, She Capital, etc.
Yeah. And I think that's the shift. So what I tend to find is if you're knocking on a closed door from 30 years in sales, it's not going to open. So you can either choose to get frustrated about the current. Yeah, you either get frustrated or you create an alternative reality, an alternative, which is what I believe that we should be doing. And that's a very strong statement. But equally, why not? You know, we have the capacity, we have the technology, we have the brains, we have the power. We just, you know, we can gain access to the cash. Why not create that system and create that fund ourselves? And really, this is why the private sector should be driving this more thoroughly than any government.
I think we'll get in touch with you. Ankita, my colleague, is here. We can probably do a paper together. So there's some great insights you're giving us, and we can match it to what all the data that we have. And we can also probably create some working partnership. At BRICS, we do support a lot of startups, and we mentor a lot of them. We also do a pitch night to help them. So, you know, you can be one of the guests for us, and, you know, you can, because it's always exciting to talk to young entrepreneurs and people who are like,
and what I'd like to do is actually, we're working with the Silicon Mountain community in Cameroon, just outside of Douala, and they've got something very similar that they're, and I spoke to Simon, I mentioned that I was coming on this call today, and I said we want to start linking up those ecosystems globally across continents and geographically to bring those, like,
so this is one thing that COVID has taught us.
Empathy, compassion. We should be leading with empathy and actually bringing all of these good, very positive.
And this is one thing that COVID has taught us, that geographies don't matter, time zones don't matter. You know, you can work together in sync if you want to. So all the biases that are separating us are actually man-made, and they actually don't hold any value. So, you know, so I think, Ankita.
Sharmishta, just a second. There's an interesting quote that I saw online. Technology is one of the key drivers of female economic empowerment, but the fields that women choose to participate in are still decidedly gendered. So that's the problem. Not participating in STEM, you know, they're still wanting to be traditional role models. Yeah, please.
And I think what's fascinating from talking about this is that that rise of technology in the 80s and 90s has created us as that generation to be able to empower other people to change. And that's down to my mum, and talking about family again, actually down to my grandmother, who taught me the importance of work, because she came from nothing, you know, poverty stricken. So for us, it's about education, and a couple of the ladies alluded to it earlier. Education and knowledge is absolute power. And I think that's what really terrifies a lot of people is, well, actually, now these women have this, what is it that they're going to create? Oh, you know, crikey, it's going to be not like it used to be, and now we don't have control. And I think that technology absolutely has that power, and that's what I would encourage women and girls to use that power to empower themselves. They don't need to wait for permission. You don't need to ask for help. Just go for it.
It's a leveler, you know, it's a leveler technology.
It is leveler. It's a
leveler.
Yeah. So before I wrap up for today, and I'll invite my colleague Ruby to thank everybody. Before that, I just want one thing, and I'll request my colleague Ankita, I'm sure she's here, that let's not end at a discussion on a webinar, you know. Let's do something, even if we do a paper together, even if we do a research paper together, even if we collaborate one-on-one. So let's take it ahead. You know, we meet these wonderful people globally. We meet them, we talk to them, we hear their journeys. So it should not end there. It should be a beginning. So, you know, Ruby, maybe, you know, we can talk to Becky a little more, and she has some great insights. So we can do a paper with her that we can publish, so that everybody who comes to our website can have a look. And similarly, Shweta is doing some great work for rural entrepreneurship. So, you know, we do have access to a lot of government schemes and everything. So maybe one of these days, you know, we can have a chat with her, and so that, because she has the people, as Ruby was saying, that the government schemes don't reach to the people it's intended to. So because Shweta has a direct inlay. So what I'm trying to say, that even if after all this, even if you're able to help 5 people or 2 people or 10 people, it's worth it. Then it's just not talk.
And Sharmishta, what Becky just mentioned, the Go Fund, why can't we just go ahead and start with that? It's a brilliant idea.
You know? So I was just thinking why can't we have something within the women's vertical where you have all the minds here, and we could come up with some special schemes that are handled by Dr. Shweta.
Why not? Why not? Such a wonderful idea. Let the corporates, let the young budding entrepreneurs
Shivani mentioned that we have very limited VC funds that women have. So maybe we could think of having a VC fund, especially for women.
We
for
can do
women.
that. We can think about
So,
that.
so let's think aloud
Yeah.
something on that lines. And
Yeah,
maybe
because then these discussions have a meaning. Otherwise, they're just discussions over the internet, and nothing else. So we should take it. We should try and take it from there. And I'm sure Ruby will be instrumental. She loves to write. She loves to tell people what to do. So that's something she will. See, Ankita is smiling.
See that a white paper under consideration is a beginning, and then we can take it for
So we are
implementation.
already working on
When
a
we are pretty serious here, I think we can put together a small fund. Maybe not a huge thing initially. Maybe maybe I don't know, 20 million or something. But we should aim at that. Let's start and
one of the things that we're doing to inspire people in rural areas especially is actually putting together like a small package of support. So for example, £10,000 or whatever, and in-kind support as well, so that we can actually get people from marginalized communities involved that might not have social confidence, to help them link to the kind of networks that we have access to, because even in the UK, social confidence is really very low for women who want to become entrepreneurs, because they've been told all of their lives that they maybe not be able to do that, and their educational aspiration can be quite low, but they're having to innovate because they're from areas of deprivation. And this is something we're seeing globally, that's want to do it is there, but there's just no avenue for people to be able to actually go and ask the right questions because they don't know who to go to. So I think that's a universal issue as well for people.
So let's work around that, Ankita. Let's do some more research, and let's see that if we can start something innovative, and we can take all this lovely discussion to something more than a discussion, because we are not politicians, na? We should just not talk. We should do something as well. Let's leave that for the politicians.
Webinar, Sharmishta, your life. So, so basically, thanks a lot. It was a great discussion and a very enriching one. And what Sharmishta said was right, Becky. We've been working on white papers, and we've been working on a BRICS white paper on women in tech entrepreneurship. And that's the reason we were very keen to have this webinar, because we wanted inputs from all of you, which we can include in a white paper and present it to the government at some point of time. So, so that is the reason for this. And we regularly hold such webinars, and we look at relevant topics. If you have some suggestions, please do write into Ankita, Dr. Shweta, Shibani, please inform us, and we can take it up as BRICS and take it forward through different discussion forums, etc. But thanks a lot once again, everybody. Shabana ji, she's a very busy entrepreneur herself, but sometimes she's somewhere, but she managed to take out time for this. I've literally been, pushing her and Sharmishta, so no wonder. And Sharmishta, I know she's not feeling that well, but look, her smile is there and she's all geared up. I told you'll have to be the moderator, so please take your time and be there. And Dr. Shweta, so good to see you. She at work, so it feels good to see all the she's in the world, and great to have your thoughts, and great that you're doing something for rural entrepreneurs. That's a great thing. Shivani, we know each other, and I've always been inspired by the stuff that you do with kids, especially, and college students and school students, and bringing up that entire culture of STEM learning, because it's got to generate from there. So that's a great thing that you and Shivesh do, and I always look up to what you do. And of course, Ankita, I know Ankita is like, you just give her a call and she gets everything done so smoothly. So Ankita, thanks a lot. She's a great pillar of support for us for the BRICS women's team. Durgesh, the silent one, he's there, but I entered and he was like, you've got your connectivity, everything, and he was like all there. Dia, thanks. Thanks, you really researched and put the pointers across for the intro. And the rest of the BRICS team, Dheeraj is there. I know he's not here. I'm not seeing him on screen, but Dheeraj is the guy who's actually working on the questionnaires, the notes. He's taking out the pointers for the quotes, etc. So great. If I've forgotten anybody, I think Jayaji is also there somewhere. But thanks, everybody. Thanks for a great session, Shamishta and all the panelists.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for
having me. It's great to meet you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ruby.
I'll share the YouTube link now as well. So that's awesome, and we'll get it out. We'll get the word out to more and more people.
That'll be wonderful. Thank you so much. See you all.
Thank you so much, everyone.